David M Hancock, and I'm going to read to you from my novel, Tricks Gone Bad. This is from the final chapter, entitled El Paso, 1986, in which the character David is really sweating out that he's going to have to testify in the criminal trial. David is sitting on the green sofa, writing in his journal, when he gets the second call. His prose has a breathless tone, as if written for the closing tease of a 1940s adventure reel. Will fate be kind? Withdraw the knife at the last moment, impart another scary but survivable lesson. Or does the blade come down this time? Pay up, you've skated long enough, settle the debt for all the free years. David knows before he picks up. Hello, David, it's Stephen. Pause. David takes a long moment to consider this newest anomaly in the legal process. If he told his lawyers about these calls, there would likely be a mistrial. David doesn't want to spend another year with this hanging over his head. Still, it was pretty bush league stuff coming from the dispense. Only in Texas, thinks David, out in the West Texas town of El Paso. Hello, Stephen. The phone connection is not good. David considers asking Stephen to hang up and try again. But given a moment to think, David probably won't pick up again. And maybe this was Stephen's only dime. Stephen jumps right in. Maybe he does have just one call. Look, David, I need your help. It's not going good for me. If I lose, they're going to put me away. How many years? Asked David, so cool. They're talking 15 years. Stephen has a convincing tremor in his voice. During their brief conversation, masterful Stephen will slowly dial up his desperation until he is beseeching David to spare him. They're asking for 15 years, David. It's the rest of my life. David considers being a dick. He could explain to Stephen that just because the prosecution asks for a certain sentence doesn't mean they'll get it. The sentence is usually up to the judge, or in capital murder cases, the jury. But it was true that many judges do exactly what the prosecution requests. What do you want me to do? Asked David, so cool. Drop the charges. Refuse to testify. They can't make you. Just don't show up and the case gets dismissed. I think they can make me, says David. I think they can subpoena me. Stephen sweeps that aside. Look, David, we had a connection. We felt something. I'm sorry about your house, but I'm in trouble. I'm fighting for my life. David considers what Stephen is saying. 15 years was heavy penance for kicking in a crappy back door and scattering some papers and silverware. It was very Les Miserables, 19 years for stealing a loaf of bread. Don't be a patsy. The thing is, Stephen has a history. For Stephen, it's more of a cumulative toll. The burglary, plus the mail fraud, plus some other things undisclosed. You had it easy, man, says Stephen, who's beginning to weep in a believable way. You had parents who took care of you, who sent you to college. I never had any of that. He goes on more in this vein, seeking David's liberal guilt. But without his glamour powers, Stephen's pitch seems uncharacteristically shrill and unconvincing. I had to fight ever since I was a kid. It was never easy, man, and it just got harder. Stephen, says David patiently, I can't back out of the trial. There's a short pause, as if Stephen were a rattlesnake coiling up inside itself to strike. When he does, David cringes on the green sofa. We're going to say you promised me money. You promised me money to come home with you, and then you didn't pay. And then you told me to come back another day and bring a friend to party if I wanted to see any money. Stephen pauses to catch his breath after voiding his fangs into David's neck. They said to tell you, perjury and solicitation of prostitution. That's what you'll get. There's a long pause as frozen David tries to will his hand to hang up the receiver. He's almost there when he hears Stephen whisper, Who knows, David? I might even say you showed me pictures of little boys. David reacts as one might after picking up an interesting rock, and then discovering a scorpion in attack pose. He fumbles the phone out of his hand, watching the receiver on its tether skip across the shag carpet. He quickly hangs up and unplugs the line from the back of the phone. In a silence punctuated by the pounding of blood in his ears, David thinks about the night he spent in the house, the night after the burglary, completely freaked out. He has now hit a new level of freaked out, a new high of stomach-spasming, heart-jolting panic. This is why people don't press charges, he thinks. It's too hard. It's too much. You're too vulnerable. That was the final chapter from my novel Tricks Gone Bad, and I'm David M Hancock.